justice and love are fully entwined. The future is waiting, let's bring it alive. The people's power will topple the towers because we keep trying. People's power will topple the towers because we keep trying. Bend the arc towards justice, be courageous, not cautious, raise the people over profits, value human rights before economics. Bend the arc towards justice, be courageous, not cautious, raise the people over profits, human rights before economics. Bend the arc towards justice, be courageous, not cautious, raise the people over profits, human rights before economics. Bend the arc towards justice, be courageous, not cautious, raise the people over profits, human rights before economics. Fight the pharaohs and the fascists because nobody is free until everybody is free. 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 Everybody is free. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist congregation. My name is Susanne Maziarz. I'm the music director, and I bring to you events in the life of our community. The newcomer info session, second part for new members or folks interested in becoming new members, is happening Sunday, February 9th after service from noon to 1:30. Join our minister, Reverend Sally Fritchie, and the NUC membership team after service for an info session aimed at newcomers who are interested in learning more about what it means to become a member and how to get involved in the many ministries of this congregation. Let's talk about money today after service, 12:30. It's Neighborhood's annual budget meeting. It has more information email, but no one's going to get your email at this point. Just come to the meeting at 12:30. Anniversary Sunday, our 25th anniversary is coming up. We're celebrating February 2nd. That's next Sunday after service from 12:30 to 3. You're all invited, but we need to know if you're going to be eating with us, and so we can order lunch for you. That means you need to register, and register by Tuesday. And how you do that is send an email to numbers 2525@nuc.ca. In our galleries, we are presenting Megan McKnight's Weeds and Their Relatives and Michael Battenberg's Portraits of an Overlooked World. The artists will be here next week to celebrate our anniversary with us. Good morning and welcome to Neighborhood. Were you greeted when you came in this morning? Maybe you could be a greeter if you're looking for a fun and social, easy way to get involved at Neighborhood. You're invited to join the team of Sunday morning greeters for a pizza party and training. That's happening Wednesday, February 5th at 6:30. Please RSVP to Rev Sally, which is rev.sally@nuuc.ca. Neighborhood is involved in the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. That's happening this Monday in EEU Sanctuary. Tomorrow, this Monday, it's tomorrow at 6. This is, I'm sorry, it's very small, a vigil on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, paying tribute to both survivors and liberators. All are welcome to attend that ceremony. Neighborhood has a mask required section that's beside the West Library. These chairs here, masks are available. This is a permanent feature of our services. Coming up on February 23rd, Neighborhood is hosting a concert called An Evening of Queer Folk with Spencer Lajoie and Taylor Abrahams. You need to get your tickets through Eventbrite, and the details will be in our Monday mailing. Comfort Choir. If you're interested in joining our Comfort Choir, we're having a new members info and rehearsal. It is this Saturday. Yes, it is this Saturday from 3 to 5 here in Rafos Hall. We sing twice a month on a Thursday in palliative care at Michael Guerin. You can talk to me after service if you'd like to learn more about us. Our C committee, C stands for Social and Environmental Action, is having a meeting on February 16th after service, either in here or the Rainbow Room. Come to share your ideas and get involved in social justice. You can contact Nancy or Laura for more info. Their emails will be also in our Monday mailing. And we continue our exploration of Love at the Center, focusing on justice, with a message, Conscience and Democracy, the Means of Justice, with our friend Reverend Stephen Atkinson. Music will be provided by our own Spirit Choir. Our service weaver next week will be Gordon Thorne, and Time for All the Ages with Julia.
Good morning again. With more bass and profundity. Welcome to our service here at Neighborhood, whether you're here with us in person or joining us on Zoom. I'm here on land that is the territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit Nation and has been lived on by the Wendat, Anishinaabeg, and Haudenosaunee nations, and more recently by other First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. These 6 weeks, we're looking at the theme of justice, and I am mindful of the broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations by sharing stories and telling the truth of this place. My name is Peter Marmorek, and I will be both your service weaver and part of message deliverer this morning. We will start today's service by creating a sacred space. To help us all stay undistracted in that space, please turn off anything electronic that might distract you or others. And I invite you all to join me in reading our invocation. Let us cast the circle of a sacred space here.
Let us cast the circle of a cherished space here, a space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life, a life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families.
Our chalice will be lit today by Diana Ralph, our guest. And instead of lighting it anew, we're taking the light from the children's flame and then passing it on to the chalice. In this way, we are reminded to keep the children's fire always burning in our own hearts. And please join with Suzanne. Susanne, would you like to introduce the prelude?
Sure would. Thanks. Mark, could you pull up that slide, please? For our prelude this morning, we're actually all going to sing together. It's a song by Batya Levine called We Rise, and I wanted to share with you her own words about the inspiration for this song, because it's relevant. We Rise came through right after the 2016 election. It was a moment of deep fear and despair as we watched a campaign built on white supremacy and racism win. The results came in a few weeks after I had returned from Standing Rock, and in the wake of the election, I felt a profound sense of hopelessness. I needed to believe that collective power and resistance was possible in the face of such great unknown. I reached inward for a prayer, for a shred of hope, and what I found was the powerful and prayerful resistance I had witnessed and experienced at Standing Rock. In that moment, I started to sing, praying into my bones that vision of holy resistance. In this time when white supremacy and fascism are so clearly lifting their heads, may we truly center the resistance and vision of Black folks, Indigenous, Native peoples, communities of color, immigrants, and refugees. May we believe in our collective power and resilience and learn to live it as we work to dismantle the oppressive forces within ourselves and in the world around us. No matter what struggles lie ahead, may we keep fighting and rising for and with each other. I invite you to rise as you're comfortable. And you can join me. We'll do this first page twice, Mark, just to get everyone focused on it. Yeah. We rise, humbly hearted, rise, won't be divided, rise, with spirit to guide us, rise, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in hope, in prayer, we're right here, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here, in hope, in prayer, we're right here, we rise, humble
And now we continue right here in hope, in prayer, and in sacred space. We thank all the many staff and volunteers who've worked together to create this service. And I wanted to say what a great joy it is to be able to have as our guest speaker today my longtime friend and teacher, Diana Ralph. Diana is a devout Jew and a member of the Or Hanei Shema congregation in Ottawa. She's a lifelong activist on a range of social issues, especially around Israel and Palestine, and that, in fact, is where we met, working together in Tikkun, Toronto, on issues around bringing Jews and Muslims together over Israel and Palestine. In 2008, she founded Independent Jewish Voices Canada and coordinated it for over 10 years. She currently helps to coordinate reconstructions, expanding the conversation on Israel and Palestine. Until she retired, she was a social work professor at Carleton University. She's the author of 2 books, many articles, and a quite wonderful movie screenplay. Unitarians are open to many beliefs, and we learn from many traditions, which is how we come to be having 6 services this year on different ways of approaching religion. Our services vary from week to week, so we encourage you to sample several to get a sense of the range of what it is we do here. Please, if you're here for the first time, stay with us after service in the cappuccino room behind to talk to people, find out more about who we are, and for us to find out more about who you are. The youth room to my left is open after service if you're looking for a quieter place to have conversations. Our mission at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. Our theme for this 6 weeks, as Suzanne said, is justice, and I'll talk more about that later. But now it's time to greet your neighbor. After you've greeted a few neighbors, turn to the camera on the back wall and wave at the people who are on Zoom. They won't be able to hear you, but they'll see you waving, and they'll appreciate that.
There we go. Just a little introduction to the song we are about to sing. In our hymnal, it's called When Israel Was in Egypt's Land, but it's more familiarly known as Go Down Moses, or Let My People Go. This song tells the story from Exodus of Moses leading the enslaved Jews out of Egypt to freedom. This melody that was created to tell this story was sung by enslaved Africans in the United States and was outlawed. The song was outlawed to be sung by the enslavers. Harriet Tubman, whom the tune is named for and may have come up with this melody, said it was one of 2 code songs to help fugitive enslaved people find their way to freedom. Today we will sing 5 of the very many verses that exist for this song. I invite you to rise as is comfortable for you to join me in singing. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people
Now? Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Denise, and I am bringing to you today, because Julia is always sick, the time for all ages. This is very loud. All right. I'm going to read a story that is called It Could Always Be Worse, and it's a Yiddish folktale, and it's retold. They say with pictures. I don't know what the slides look like. Great. And with pictures by Margot Zimak. I'm sorry, Margot, if I got your name wrong. Okay, if there are any children who would like to join me up front, I'm happy to read with you or to you. We're all going to hear the story regardless. So once upon a time in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man, thank you, friends, lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-roomed hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued, and the children were noisy, and they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. One day, when the poor unfortunate man could stand it no longer, or couldn't stand it anymore, he ran to the rabbi for advice. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "things are in a bad way with me, and getting worse. We are so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded, and there's so much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say." The rabbi thought and pulled on his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, do you have any animals, perhaps a chicken?" "Yes," said the man, "I do have a few chickens, and also a rooster and a goose." "Ah, fine," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take them into your hut to live with you." "Yes, indeed, Rabbi," said the man, though he was a bit surprised. The poor unfortunate man hurried home and took the chickens, the rooster, and the goose out of the shed and into his little hut. Life in the hut was far worse than before. Now there was crowing and clucking, and there were feathers in the soup. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, now with the crying and quarreling and the honking, clucking, and crowing. "It couldn't get worse. Help me, please." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, do you happen to have a goat?" "Oh, yes, I do have an old goat, but he's not worth much." "Excellent," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the old goat into your hut to live with you." "Oh, no. Do you really mean it, Rabbi?" cried the man. Come now, my good man, and do as I say at once," said the rabbi. The poor unfortunate man tramped back home with his head hanging down and took the old goat into his hut. Life in the little hut was much worse. Now the goat went wild, pushing and butting everyone with his horns. When the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he ran again to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi, help me," he screamed. "Now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, is it possible that you have a cow?" "Young or old, it doesn't matter." "Yes, Rabbi, it's true I have a cow," said the man fearfully. "Go home then," said the rabbi, "and take the cow into your hut." "Oh, no, surely not, Rabbi," cried the man. "Do it at once," said the rabbi. The poor unfortunate man trudged home with a heavy heart and took the cow into his hut. Is the rabbi crazy, he thought? Life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild. The cow trampled everything. And at last, when the poor unfortunate man could stand it no longer, he ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he shrieked, "help me, save me. The end of the world has come. The cow is trampling everything. There is no room even to breathe. It's worse than a nightmare." The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, "Go home now, my poor unfortunate man, and let the animals out of your hut." "Oh, I will. I'll do it right away," said the man. This poor unfortunate man hurried home and let the cows, the goat, the chickens, the goose, and the rooster out of his little hut. That night, the man and all of his family slept peacefully. There was no crowing, no clucking, no honking. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the man ran back to the rabbi. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "you have made life sweet for me. With just my family in the hut, it is so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. What a pleasure." I guess it goes without saying that we should all be grateful for what we have. So, time for all ages. I invite any children who wish to join Kim and Kiana in the Rainbow Room for some activities. And there's a song.
So Diana and I will tell you a bit about Judaism, and later we'll answer some of the questions that were in the Q box, and then we might debate about the answers, because that's also an important part of Judaism. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Jewish history covers about 4,000 to 5,000 years, but the founding myth of Judaism takes place about 4,000 years ago, when Abraham makes a covenant with God. Abraham gives his faith to God in return for God's blessings on his descendants. Abraham proves his faith by being willing to sacrifice his son, Isaac. In the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, that son is Isaac, from whom Jews are descended. In the Quran, that son is Ishmael, from whom Muslims are descended. So Islam and Judaism are sibling religions, literally. 250 years later, nearabouts, Abraham's great-grandson Joseph is sold as a slave into Egypt. In Egypt, he does well. He interprets Pharaoh's dreams and is raised up to a position of power. All of his siblings, whom he eventually forgives, follow him, and the Jews settle in Egypt. They do well there until a mega pharaoh, make Egypt great again, decides that the Jews are unwanted immigrants who are doing way too well. So he makes them slaves and uses them to further his grandiose pyramid schemes. Passover, which some rabbis view as the most important Jewish holiday, celebrates Jews' escape from Egypt led by Moses, as you heard in the song. God eventually makes a covenant with Jews at Mount Sinai, that's the oral Torah, and eventually the Jews settle in Palestine. They stay in Palestine, are exiled to Babylon for a period of time, return to Palestine, and then are permanently expelled by the Romans about 20 years after the Romans have crucified Jesus for being a Jewish agitator. And they're driven around the world for the next 2,000 years. The most amazing thing about Judaism is that during those 2,000 years, there have been a minority everywhere. If you take 1,000 people today to represent the world, about 310 of them would be Christian, 250 would be Muslim, and 2 of them would be Jewish. Not many. Yet Jews have managed to retain their religion and language. Part of the reason is the intense focus on literacy, study, and debate over the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. The word Israel means he who struggles with God. And there are many stories in the Torah where Moses, Abraham, Isaac all struggle and wrestle, in Isaac's case, literally with God. As God is sometimes distant, Jews stay in shape by arguing and wrestling with each other over what his text means. As a favorite Jewish saying puts it, the dispute of scholars increases wisdom. The goal of debate is always wisdom. In the Babylonian exile, the Talmud was started. It's a compilation of the different opinions of thousands of rabbis over what exactly the Torah means. Here's what a page looks like. In the center is a word from Torah. On the left is the oldest commentary, and all these others are other commentaries with little additions along the edges. This is a copy of the Babylonian Talmud translated on the 2nd level into English and on the 3rd level into Hebrew. So that gives you a sense of what the Talmud looks like in volume. The idea of struggling for a better answer, for a wiser answer, for a more moral answer is interwoven with a tendency towards political struggle. One of the core duties in Judaism that Jews carry is tikkun olam, to heal the world. In the Talmud it says, "You may not complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." Passover, celebrating the fight for justice in Egypt and as slaves and their victory over Pharaoh, is a story that became central to the fight for black liberation in the States, as you will have heard in the Go Down Moses song. So how and why did Jews become viewed as evil amongst many Christians? That started about 300 years after Jesus' death, when the Emperor Constantine, the most powerful person in the Roman Empire, converted to Christianity. Because the Emperor of Rome was now a Christian, blaming the Romans for the crucifixion seemed politically unwise. The Jews had been exiled from Israel at this point, had no political power, and weren't converting to Christianity. So the Jews became blamed for Jesus' death, the fact that Jesus was Jewish, and that his teachings, incredibly powerful and wonderful as they are, all mirror teachings in the later prophets. It's a combination of ideas that were present at the time. That got hidden. In Europe, there were persecutions and riots, pogroms, against Jews through much of European history, culminating with the Holocaust, in which 2/3 of European Jews and 1/3 of all the Jews worldwide were killed. My parents were lucky enough to escape, Mom from Germany, Dad from Austria, but we certainly have a lot of people on the family tree who didn't. This was not true of Jews' relationships with Muslims, with whom Jews generally got along well until recently. Muslims recognized Jews as the people of the book, along with Christians, and as having a common spiritual ancestor in Abraham. Jews were often advisors to the caliphs, the emperors of the Ottoman Empire, and there was a rich cultural renaissance for all 3 religions in Muslim Andalusia, or Spain, for over 1,000 years. That ended when Northern Catholics took over Spain, expelled the Muslims and Jews, and created the Spanish Inquisition, which no one expected. It's a slow one. The results of the horrors of the Holocaust were twofold. The result on many Jews was a traumatized sense that the world could not be trusted to protect them, and that the only solution might lie in a strong and militant Jewish state. The rest of the world felt collective guilt over how little they'd done to stop the Holocaust, and that guilt led the UN in 1948 to divide Palestine, the British colony of Palestine, into two halves, one for the Jews and one for the Muslims. This didn't work out well, particularly as England had previously promised all of Palestine, both to the Jews and to the Palestinians. Diana will talk more about that, but first it's time for meditation. I talked about Pharaoh as being an external tyrant, and there is, sadly, no shortage of external tyrants whom we need to resist today in our struggle for justice. But there are also internal tyrants, internal pharaohs who tell us we need to be working harder, we need to do more, we need to be better in some way. January is a month sacred to those tyrants. It's the month when we're supposed to make resolutions about how we're all going to be better and we're going to improve. So for a few minutes in silence, think about those pharaohs who are oppressive to you, whether internal or external, and what you might do to resist them. Susanne will play music to bring you back.
Thank you, Peter, and it's lovely to see you all. Over its long history, Judaism has evolved and reinvented itself many times. For example, after the Babylonian exile, Judaism stopped being run by priests in holy places, the Solomon's Temple, and it started being led by rabbis or teachers with observance based on holy time, Shabbat and the holidays. Today, you can find Jews around the globe in all hues and across religious and political spectrums. There's a joke that says, if there are 2 Jews in the room, there are at least 3 opinions. Jewish congregations differ widely. In Toronto alone, I counted them, there are 89 synagogues, and each has its own distinct flavor. At one end of the spectrum are Orthodox shuls, or synagogues, where women and men sit separately, which prohibit interfaith marriage and consider homosexuality an abomination. On the other end of the spectrum are Reconstructionist shuls like mine, where the rabbi is a lesbian who marries interfaith and LGBTQ couples. But all Jewish congregations share some core elements. I'll just mention a few. The Shema is our core creed, and it goes like this. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. It actually goes on longer, but that's the core part. And it means, listen, people who wrestle with God, our God is one. Because we see God's creation in everything, many Jews infer that we must treat everything and everyone with respect. The Torah refers to the 5 books of Moses, or what Christians call the Old Testament. And by the way, calling it the Old Testament is actually anti-Semitic because it implies that somehow the Hebrew Bible is outdated and superseded. We revere, chant, study, and reassess the entire Torah every year. Flowing through the Torah is a repeated theme that because God ended our slavery in Egypt, we must treat others justly and oppose all oppressions. Shabbat, or Sabbath, is the 4th commandment of the 10 Commandments. It requires us to rest from Friday night to Saturday sundown each week, and during that time to celebrate the wonders of creation. Weekly Shabbat services can vary widely, but they follow a consistent structure, climaxing in reading and analyzing the weekly portion of the Torah. Many of the Shabbat prayers are sung with hauntingly beautiful melodies, and if you've never attended a Shabbat service, I encourage you to try it. I think you'd enjoy it. People will welcome you, and we don't proselytize, so no one will try to convert you. Jewish life revolves around holidays celebrated with prayer, study, great food, and music. What I treasure most about Judaism is our commitment to social justice. Jews believe that all people are born good, that our souls are pure, and that sin is just speaking or acting in a way that makes us fall short of our best selves. We can try again. We share a core obligation to tikkun olam, as we mentioned, and it means to heal the world by promoting justice and loving kindness. We focus on ethical action, and we don't require belief in God or any other doctrine. Jews are now deeply divided over Zionism and our relationship with Israel. Many Zionists equate Judaism with support for Israel and passionately defend it and attack anyone who doesn't. Liberal Zionists aim to end the occupation of the West Bank while protecting Israel as a Jewish state. Some Jews avoid talking about Israel altogether to prevent divisions in their families and congregations, as those of you who were here last night heard. And some, like me, and like Yael, who spoke last night, have become explicitly anti-Zionist. I wasn't always that way. In the wake of the Holocaust, many Jews, including my parents, as Peter said, believed that only a Jewish state could protect them. They enthusiastically adopted Zionism, and many feel deeply attached to and proud of it. When I was a child, I sang Israeli folk songs and danced Israeli dances and hoped one day to move to Israel and work on a kibbutz. I believed the Zionist myth that Israel was a land without people and the Jews were the rightful owners of that land. But after the 1967 Six-Day War, I learned that what is now called Israel was actually Palestine, that Jews had violently expelled the Palestinian people, and that they continued to oppress them. I now believe that Zionism is a racist colonial settler ideology which violates everything I cherish about Judaism. It's essentially a different new religion. In fact, when it got started, All four branches of Judaism and secular Jews all opposed it. It was only the Holocaust that changed that. The genocide that Israel is committing with the backing of the US, Britain, and Canada represents the horrific logical outcome of Zionist ideology. Besides destroying Gaza and killing many of its people, I believe Zionist Israel also damages the soul of Jews, and by promoting anti-Semitism, endangers Jews worldwide, and especially in Israel. Many of us now work to help Judaism to evolve further by humbly facing the fact that Jews can also be oppressors as well as victims, and by reaffirming our commitment to universal justice and peace. So to close, I'd like to read you Summons, which is a poem I love by Aurora Levins Morales, a Puerto Rican Jew, and you've got it on the screen there. Let me just find it. Last night, I dreamed 10,000 grandmothers from 12,000 corners of the earth walked out into the gap one breath deep between the bullet and the flesh, between the bomb and the family. They told me, we cannot wait for governments. There are no peacekeepers boarding planes. There are no leaders who dare to say every life is precious. So it will have to be us. They said, we will cup our hands around each heart. We will sing the earth's song, the song of water, a song so beautiful that vengeance will turn to weeping. The mourners will embrace, and grief replace every impulse toward harm. 10,000 is not enough, they said. So we have sent this dream like a flock of doves into the sleep of the world. Wake up, put on your shoes. You who are reading this, I am bringing bandages and a bag of scented guavas from my trees. I think I remember the tune. Meet me at the corner. Let's go. Stay.
So now we have the questions that were in the Jew Q box. First question was, which Jewish communities can you join without being born or raised Jewish?
You can go to any Jewish congregation.
Yes.
Nobody's going to turn you away. To join, it depends on the shul.
I can't argue with that. How can we create interfaith dialogue that pushes us to a place of discomfort and growth without compromising respect and safety?
That's what I do all the time.
I would say to create dialogue, you need to find someone who is willing to talk to you about that question. You can't just go in and say, I want to talk to you about Israel and what's happening, unless the other congregation or people or person has said that they're interested in talking with you. As always, the key to any dialogue is listening to what the other people have to say and not just coming in with, you have a problem and I've got the answer. That never works.
Good answer.
The third question was, what would be the difference between having a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah? It's bar mitzvah for boys, bat mitzvah for girls, or men and women, at age 12, and so much later, like a friend at age 81, and just what's involved in the preparation for it. I understand reading the Torah, but is that really such a big deal?
You want to come up, Jean? This is my wife, Jean, and we're both, Jean converted to Judaism umpty-ump years ago.
30.
And we're both getting ready for our bat mitzvah, which I never had when I was a kid. You couldn't have one if you were a girl.
And when I was a girl, you couldn't have one if you weren't a Jew.
So what's involved?
Well, the first question is, what's the difference? It's a tricky thing to answer because the same things have to happen, but you have to remember that when you're 12, you're 12, and 81 is 69 years later, and you've learned a lot, you've thought a lot, you've got a lot of different information, you've got more ways of thinking about the world. So that's a lot of it.
And that's important because you not only read the Torah, but you then have to explicate what you've read and talk about it. So approaching what you've read from a 12-year-old perspective is, of course, very different from the wisdom that we elders theoretically carry.
Right. Yeah, in a lot of synagogues, when I was a kid, especially for the 12 or 13 for boys, 12 for girls, they mature faster, was to basically you just memorize a bunch of hodgepodge words and you don't really understand Hebrew. And it's sort of a rite of initiation. But we are, as adults, expected not only to be able to chant it and sing it, because the Torah is, it's an amazingly rich thing that is, it has a melody to it, and each word has symbols, and we're supposed to not only understand the text, but also the commentaries and the implications for now. Any more?
There is a lot of preparation. We've had 2 meetings so far with our rabbi, and we still don't know which part we're going to chant because she hasn't told us. But we have been reading a lot around the Torah portion. We get Leviticus, which I have to say is not my favorite book, but it's
mostly the rules and regulations.
It's rules and regulations, but what we've learned is that there is context for it. And I think if I was doing this at 12, I would not have any of that information. But having it now makes it really possible to engage with the text.
Thank you both. I just wanted to check with the people here. Are there any questions that people wanted to ask that they didn't?
I got my own mic here. I can use
Oh, yes, of course.
I can use my own mic.
Yes.
No, I can't. Yes, I can. My question, and I realize this is going to be a hard question. I understand just from talking to people that a lot of resentment towards Jewish people is because they consider themselves God's chosen ones. And I wonder if you could just talk about your understanding of what that really means for you from your understanding of Judaism and how it applies to your life.
There's an apocryphal story that God offered the Torah to every other group of people and they all turned it down. The Jews were the only ones who would accept it.
First of all, the Reconstructionist movement, the part of Judaism that I'm in, rejects that whole notion of chosenness and tries to make it more universal. But the idea of chosenness was not about being better than other people, but having a special obligation to follow even more obligations, to be more holy, to be more ethical, to be a model, a light unto the nations. So that was what the concept of chosenness referred to. And then Israel, of course, they think they are better.
And it's also worth noting that in Judaism, it's actually easier for non-Jews to get to heaven than for Jews, because Jews have a lot of commandments to follow, whereas there are only 8 basic ethical commandments for non-Jews, which are things like not killing people, not hurting animals, and so on.
Also, there's no heaven or hell.
Certainly no hell. There's different views about
Yeah,
life.
I'm going to let Jean comment first and then come back to
About chosenness, as someone who chose to convert to Judaism, what I've realized is that not only did God choose the Jews had to choose God, and every time a new commandment came forward, it's like, oh, okay, don't eat meat and milk together. All right, okay, now what? Oh, right. You can't have, you can eat fish as long as it's got scales and fins, but I can't have lobster. That kind of thing. So it's the chosenness goes both ways.
That's the idea of the covenant.
Hi. I want to go back to the bat and bar thing because I really appreciate your explanation between the difference of doing it when you're 12 or 13 and as a person who has had some life experience, and I really understand that difference. I think, though, the question's core is, why is it a bat and a bar, right? What are the differences between those? And they have different names. And the follow-up question to that is there a third for people who don't fit within those two boundaries?
Excellent question. First of all, as I say, Judaism evolved. It evolved as a when bar mitzvahs started, it was for boys only. And it was a way of joining the whole community. There weren't bat mitzvahs. So bat mitzvahs are not really different from bar mitzvahs. It's just the gendered word.
Hebrew is a gendered language like French. So there are people actively involved in trying to ungender the language. And we use a lot of that sometimes in our synagogue. We have all the prayers are written in the male gender. So we have the option of saying the female if we choose. But for those who don't choose either of those, we're coming up with that. It's just taking time.
Now it's time for our offertory. Today, after service, is our annual budget meeting, as you heard, and I don't think I'm giving away anything that wasn't mailed to us, but spoiler warning, we need more money. Rent, salaries, and our programs are paid for by our contributions, and when these contributions are less than our expenditures, we have a problem. Members of Neighborhood choose a variety of ways to give, and whether you're online or here in the sanctuary, you can use the link displayed on the screen, now with a little chalice at the center, which leads to our donation page on our website. In all ways, I ask you to be generous. The greeters would come up and get the bowls, or they already have them, I see, and take the donations.
Great. As the baskets are going around, I'd like to teach you a song by Rabbi Shefa Gold that Diana Ralph introduced me to for this service. It has two parts, but today we're just going to learn the first part, and maybe at a future service I'll teach you the second part and we can sing it in harmony. I'll sing it through once, and then I'll teach it to you line by line and we'll get it going. Hold firmly without wavering to the hope that we confess. Hold firmly without wavering to the hope that we got. To the hope that we confess. There we go. Thank you. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Thank you. So I'll start. Hold firmly without wavering. Hold firmly without wavering to the hope that we confess. To the hope that we confess. Hold firmly without wavering. Hold firmly without wavering to the hope that we confess. To the hope that we confess. Thank you. To the hope that we confess. Let's do that again for me too. To the hope that we confess. Yeah. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Tzedek,
if you have found love and acceptance here, if you have found a home for your spirit here, if you have known kindred people here, then this offering is a token as we work together to build the common good. Thank you.
And we can forget our perfect offering and offer whatever we can. I invite you to rise as you're comfortable for our last song. This is a call and response song based on the words of Jewish Canadian Leonard Cohen, set to music. So I do the call, you do the response, and in the end, it gets a little quicker. So we'll just have a practice first before we really get into it. Well, I'm on, right? Yeah. Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Forget your perfect offering. Forget your perfect offering. Just ring the bells that still can ring. Just ring the bells that still can ring. There is a crack in everything. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. 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 Yes.
Or as Rumi said about 1,000 years earlier, the wound is the place where the light enters you. I asked Diana to come up and extinguish our chalice. And please stand with your neighbors, reaching out to touch each other's hand or elbows as you feel comfortable as we sing with Suzanne. And Diana will give us a closing blessing for today.
Oops, can't see it. This is another.
We have a slide with that, yes.
We did. This is another poem by Aurora Levins Morales, and it's a reinterpretation of the Shema that I sang to you. Hear all you who wrestle with life's meaning, Hal Machut, that which is sovereign in the universe, unruled by king or corporation, the breath of life in all things, the web of reciprocity. This is our one and only guide.
Our service is